Down to St. George this week. Some nice pickleball courts down there.
You were down at St. George?
Babysitting grandkids.
It was a lot warmer than up here, but it wasn't cool enough, warm enough getting cool. My son's house, just in the 40s or early 50s, low 50s. We were fishing Friday morning. 20 degrees. Deer Creek.
Yes.
So stinking cold. But it was fun.
We're ready. Yep.
All right, we're ready to begin. Welcome this evening to our November 21st, 2022 City Council meeting here in the chambers. Welcoming all those here in the room as well as online. I am conducting Mayor Carolyn Lundberg, so welcome. We will first begin, as we always do, with an invocation, and today I have the honor of being designated to give the opening prayer. Our Father in heaven, as we gather this evening, we are so very, very grateful, and our hearts are especially reminded at this week and this time of year to think on all of thy bounteous blessings and the gratitude that we have for our families, for our freedoms, for the prosperity that we are able to pursue, and for the opportunity to serve in each of our circles throughout the community, throughout our congregations and families. And Father, as we convene this meeting this evening, we are thankful for this community, for this city, and for the many offerings that were given going back decades and a century before to lay the groundwork for us to have such a beautiful and pleasant and well-run place to live and raise our families. And we ask thy hand to be upon us this evening to have a spirit of friendship and collaboration and respect as we handle the matters at hand. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I actually have Lincoln Jacobs will lead us in the pledge today. Thank you.
Please rise. Join me as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you so much. We will now begin with item number 1, which is our call to order and our roll call. So start here on my left.
Mike Vancherry, present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Carolyn Lundberg, present.
Van Broderick, present.
Randy Powell, present.
Okay, we move on to item number 2, our presentations and announcements, and we have our planning department here ready to acknowledge some really fine photography that was submitted to the city in their contests. We're excited to acknowledge them tonight.
Yes, thank you. So each fall, every October, is the APA, American Planning Association, National Community Planning Month, highlighting, great places in the community, great places that we plan. And so last October, we did the same thing. It's the second annual photo contest, but the theme was what Lindon means to me. And I wonder, Adam, if you could pull up those pictures. We got a lot of submissions, and after, staff and elected and appointed officials voted, these were the 3 clear winners. Luann Olson, her beautiful mountain scenery, Lisa Knapp, and I believe that's her daughter riding a horse in the rodeo arena. whipping around the Utah flag, which is awesome. And then Hunter Winkle, and I think it's her cousin. Are you? Yeah. It's your cousin riding a horse, and I would like to invite the 3 winners to kind of explain these pictures and how it shows, you know, the theme of what Lindon means to me. Luann, would you like to go first?
Well, thank you. Nice to be with you tonight. When we built our home 22 years ago here in Lindon, up on Teton Drive, we face east. I tease that I pray facing Timpanogos because it has been a prominent mountain all of my life growing up in Provo. And one spring morning, I stepped out on the porch dressed in my Sunday clothes and I said, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. And the sun was coming through the leaves of the red maple, Japanese maple. And I literally snapped a picture with my phone and said, look, Paul, it's awesome. I love living here, and I love my view, and this is a grand place to be.
We're glad you're here,
It's a grand
both of you.
picture.
Beautiful.
Easy.
I spent most of my life in Lindon, and really, it's just in our backyard. We property goes up to a pasture, and the neighbors always get on the mind that have been even a neighbor to their cousin. It's a horse. I'll get on it, but I am afraid of horses and spiders. So he faced a fear. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's my daughter Lydia. She's currently Lindon. I always tell my kids that Lindon's like a little slice of heaven because it is like voice of horses in our backyard.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Are you related to Larry Winkle at all?
I'm just gonna say yes. Don't know who that is, but I'm sure my dad does.
Just check.
He's a good guy, so it's okay to do.
Okay, good. That's awesome.
That's great. So as a prize, they get a 10-punch pass to the pool and a $10 Crumble gift card. And their photos will be hung up in the community development department for the next year until the next photo contest. So feel free, anyone, to come see them. They're really pretty. And yeah, I'll get you those prizes.
Thank you so much. Any comments from council?
Great pictures.
When are we eligible to be able to, after we're out of office, we're eligible to then submit our own photos, right?
I don't know. I would suppose you could submit a photo as well.
Under an alias.
Under an alias.
We just confirmed what we already knew.
There's so many beautiful pictures here.
Awesome.
There were some other very commendable pictures. I wish we could highlight all of them because I had a hard time voting among some of them. But yes, these kind of rose to the top for obvious reasons. But thank you to everyone who submitted. And it really does show the heart of Lindon. We're so grateful for your time and submission and sharing these pictures. So we hope you enjoy those crumble cookies and coming to our pool this next summer. All right, thank you. And you're welcome to stay as long as you like, but you're not required to stay.
We get it.
Oh, okay. If you want to hear about the county sales tax report, that's what's next.
Yes.
You can head right to Crumble now.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, this next item I asked,
We've got a little bit of feedback on the mics. Can each of you just mute your mic and let's see if that does anything? Can everybody hit your button right there on your mic?
Okay.
All right, we're gonna live with it, so, yeah.
all right, so the county had a BYU intern do a really great deep dive or semi-deep dive into the sales tax that they've collected and what industries over between 2020 21 and kind of trying to look at projecting into the future. And I thought this might be really helpful for us as council to look at this. You know, we're always looking at how economic growth and economic stability in the retail sales tax really provides such a significant portion of our revenue for our funding of city services and amenities and all the things that we do here. So, you know, we know that things are cyclical and can be changing, and so I thought this would be helpful for us to see where we're at, kind of in comparison to the industries that are doing well. And I think you're going to be, I was pleased to see where we were at in comparison. So just, I'm going to kind of go through this quickly, but it was an analysis here, and the sales tax naturally rose for the county like it did all around during COVID. And so they wanted to look at what were the trends, what were the different driving industries that supported that. So if you go to this chart here, it looks at sales tax beginning January of 2012 all the way through to the quarter ending April of 2022. And you can kind of see that it's had steady growth. And then on the next screen, 2020 and 21, the growth was much higher than typical. You can kind of see those percentages there in the right-hand column. So on the next screen, the county is just acknowledging, you know, their option sales tax revenue makes up, it was $41 million in 21, and that was 35% of their general fund revenue. So it's looking at the drivers then on the next two screens forward. You can see here they wanted to figure out where was the revenue coming from in the sales tax. And you can see, you know, the orange automotive sales, big box retail, that's like your Costco as well. Online shopping really took off in 2019 forward once those online sales tax was captured due to that legislation. So you can kind of see some of those. And then going down into those high growth industries that are responsible for the majority of the growth on the next screen, it gives a listing there. And if anyone has a question, jump in. I'm just kind of trying to go through this quickly so it doesn't take up too much time. But you can see some of the businesses there that are examples of those high growth industries. So going on to the next screen, we have a couple pie charts, and it shows here those industries made up 98% and 81% of the growth between those 2 years, respectively. So those industries were really, really strong. On the next screen, you can see here with the growth of identified industries, the sales tax revenue grew 20% in 2021 alone. If you had taken out all of those identified top industries, on the next screen you can see that growth would have only risen by about 6.5% from everything else, potentially outside of those drivers. So then the next section takes on how did these industries, you know, what's explained, why did these industries do so well, so that we can understand them in projecting forward. So the top three industries were automotive sales, big box retail, online shopping. Looking at why they have grown. So if you move forward each individually, in the U.S. as a whole, vehicle sales have fallen in recent years. So this is a national trend here that we're looking at. But as you go forward to the next screen, you can see motor vehicle inflation, however, has increased dramatically. So the cost for vehicles has increased per car. So that would correspond as to why the sales tax that's collected is higher on automotive. So they determined automotive growth in that industry, which was a leading driver, was mostly due to inflation and pent-up demand that happened as well with the supply chain. And they feel that going forward, pent-up demand will continue, and So the revenue should stay high in that industry. Then moving on to big box retail, nationwide, these have fallen in past years. You can see there the blue line represents national trend, the orange represents Utah County. And so looking at what is different in Utah County is that we have bigger families and that the online retailers here have all adopted curbside and delivery, which has driven higher growth in sales as well. And that we may be test marketing drone delivery. That would be an interesting thing as well. Today I would have used the drone. I was trying to print some paper and I was out of paper and I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I could order the drone right now to drop that off to my house. I don't have time to run to the store. Okay, so big box retail sales, they've always had a long trend of increasing revenue gradually, if not, and so they don't anticipate those slowing down. And then online. We all know e-commerce has really increased over time. And one thing that was mentioned is that doors or residential, this is an interesting thing that I've heard said at a couple places. Doors are now retail. Rooftops are now retail because of e-commerce. So, so as you look at population growth, driving e-commerce. So anyway, you can see here it was about January 2019 that when legislation was enacted, and that's when the sales tax started to be collected from online sales. So revenue hadn't been collected before on the next screen, and so now we can kind of move forward. They anticipate that Utah County will continue to receive this new revenue from online shopping. Our economy is doing really well. We have a lot of startups here. We have a lot of B2B sales, a lot of good drivers for online. So the other high growth industries outside of those three, you can see in the next pie charts there, kind of the percentage of the pie that they made up. Most other industries that contributed to the 2021 growth, they all did better in 21 than in 20. Those that maybe dropped in 2020, they anticipate are, coming back. They're bouncing back. So projections, we can kind of scoot ahead here, Adam. 2022's trajectory obviously is difficult to predict, but they do anticipate 2022 will finish up strong with continued revenue. One of the other things that's definitely a driver now is inflation itself overall. So you imagine everything we buy now costs more, so, and so the sales tax in turn that's charged has gone up as well, but it costs more to do everything we do. So also the increasing population is going to be significant. They feel that whatever may happen going into recession or a pre-2020 norm, going back to the norms, just our natural organic growth and in-migration is going to continue increasing population steadily here, actually faster than other places in the nation. Individuals and families also in the next screen talking about are continuing to earn and spend more over time in the county. So you can see those charts there. So naturally, as individuals and families are doing well and prospering, they'll keep spending, that'll keep driving good sales tax. So the final takeaways were 2022 and 23 will likely see some continued growth, nearly not as dramatic as what happened in 21. Beyond 2023, it's more uncertain. So we'll just have, they anticipate automotive revenue growth could slow. Big box, they project will maintain. Online sales could slow depending on what happens in the economy. So good signs ahead generally, nothing to. So any thoughts? And what was really, what got me excited about seeing this was that Lindon, as a microcosm of the greater Utah County, when I looked at those top industries and drivers, we have those same players, and many other cities do not. So,
I agree with your takeaways. I think Utah County is such a unique microeconomic area that as we look at national, even regional stuff, we are so blessed to be here. Side note, I did have lunch last week with a Lindon automotive retailer, Dastrop Auto, and they've already started to see a little bit of that inflation coming down. There was such a spike, as we saw in that graph, that started to come down. They said demand is still there, like you mentioned, but that prices have started coming back down to earth a little bit. But I think with that population growth continuing to increase revenues, that buffer will just be there. If a recession, if a pre-2020 numbers come back. So anyways, great. I geek out on this stuff. I loved looking at this and reviewing it. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it was a great presentation to look through and see, and all of that information, very enjoyable to look through.
Good to get some positive news. I have a question. It's a little bit off topic. The Pleasant Grove lawsuit on the road taxes. Do we know, Brian, anything happening on that, or is anything happening at all?
They've had their arguments before the Supreme Court, just waiting for an opinion to come down. And they had those arguments in March or
I knew it was a while ago.
It was in the spring, and every time I'm looking for that case.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
all right. Okay. I guess that concludes item number 2, agenda 2. So we'll move on to number 3 here. This is our open session for public comment. If anyone from the public would like to address the council for something that is not currently listed on tonight's agenda, we invite you to come forward. All right, no one's twitching out of their seat, so we'll keep moving on. Council reports. All right. Councilmember Powell, would you like to kick us off tonight?
Mic on, trying to avoid that feedback, so it's not me coming from. Lots of things to report on. We've had our youth council meeting this last week where we had elections, and happy to report that the following individuals have been selected by both the advisors and most especially important by the other youth council participants for these following positions. Malia Funes is our new youth mayor. Jace Anderson is our deputy mayor. Cameron Lloyd is our secretary. Kimberly Richardson is our recorder. Max Madsen is our treasurer. Ivana Gleason, our historian. Events chair is Riley Swalberg. And our communications specialist is Jocelyn Abachi. I never do her name, but it's a beautiful name for a beautiful girl. And so those are our young youth council members, as well as the rest of the body will just continue to be members at large. They went on after their meeting Monday to go have a service project along with the mayor to collect leaves throughout the city. I was not able to attend that, but it looked like it was a fun event when I could see on Facebook and hear from a couple of the youth members. And so they had a great time with that. Also, let's see, our senior center on December 15th, they want you to know that our senior center will be hosting a Christmas party, which is December 15th, and reservations will be needed. It is a dinner. It's in the gym, starts at 5 o'clock, and they've just started accepting those reservations. I'll have more information to share about really what's going on that at our next council meeting. That's what I had to be able to glean from today. With CERT, I thought maybe I'd have a little bit more information, but I'll share what I do have. Kelly has shared with me some tentative dates, which she will probably have some good dates for me. I'm just going to check one more time. She was sending it to me today. Oh, here she is. And we've got some classes coming up. Let's see here. March 4th, 11th, and 18th will be our next class So March 4th, 11th, and 18th with our mock disaster on March 25th. It's usually a Saturday, each Saturday in a month. And at the end, so that's our CERT class in March. April will be a continuing education. It'll be part of, it looks like, the Great Utah Shakeout, which will be on Thursday, April 20th at the community center. And this will be involving the building department, I believe, if I understand right. They want to get you involved with the building inspectors and the building department on working on the Great Utah Shakeout. That is, in June, there'll be some continuing education, which will be on Saturday, the 24th. September, we're going to do a real-world event, which will take place on Monday, the 11th, which is, of course, September 11th. And there'll be a call out for some food drive information, and also be part of the Lindon drill, of course. And then our last event for the year will be October CERT classes again, just like we had in March, and that will be for the consecutive Saturdays in October. And we'll go ahead and touch bases with those dates a little further into next year of 23. Also, she wants to go,
Can I
yes,
ask a quick
yes, you
question
may.
on this CERT? Do they do a refresher course, or do you have to redo the whole thing? Have they addressed something like, I've had the CERT training, but it's now been a
You've
number
asked
of
me that
years.
before. I will.
Maybe just check
I will
and see
get that
what-
refresher.
They don't, it's not a refresher course. I mean, you can sit in on the classes again. For example, I was there for everyone except for the mock disaster.
So you're just looking to, you want to finish and get your certificate.
All I'd have to
right,
do is
but
show
you
up
want
for
to
the mock
recertify
disaster.
perhaps.
Yeah, just look to see. But it looks like you go through the whole course again.
When I will double check and make sure, maybe they've got something, I know that they've talked about having one where you just show your abilities based on what you recall. So I will find out some definite information on that
You
one.
probably had 4 or 5 there that had taken the course
Before.
before and were there just as a refresher.
And along with that, if you have your CERT kit from before, obviously don't need that, but if you need the city to provide one for you, it's $40. It includes a helmet, a vest, goggles, and gloves, and a backpack. But you're welcome to source those online, make sure they're more specific to your needs, and those are all available on Amazon in quick fashion if you need to do that, especially if you have a difficult to fit head to get a good size helmet.
Me.
I have a son that's like, he's got a child-sized head, so he needs a small one.
10 size does not fit all.
You're correct on that one. I had the opportunity to fill in for Van at the Provo Bench meeting, which was a lot of fun. I don't want to say that loud because I really think that they're a lot of fun. So you're missing out on something. He has been holding a gym back, the card close to his vest because it was a lot of fun.
Okay, I got to stop right here now and
Okay.
interject what I just told you earlier. So we have 2 of these back to back, one with Provo Bench and then one with North Union. And a lot of the same people go to both. And so I went to the one following, I'll talk about it in a second. And they said, send Councilmember Powell in the future, not you.
We kind of had a lot of fun, so it was a good bunch of gentlemen and a wonderful secretary that they have. So we had a good evening to report on that. They are going to be, and Van would report this if he had been there. The new assessment for the year will go from per share will be from $130 to $145 per share, and then if you are renting a share, it'll go from $400 to $425. Those who rent shares are more challenging, I'll say, to deal with. Is that a good assessment, a good characterization of them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Also, they didn't make any other changes other than, I thought maybe we did a late fee, but we decided just to leave the late fee as it was. And last but not least is our education grant. A lot of great things on our education grants this year. Typically, it's in the 20 range or less of applicants. We had 35 this year. And thankful to the council who raised our budget to 2,000, but sadly 2,000 didn't get us to the 35 that we needed. But there was a lot of dissecting these programs, a lot of research. I'm grateful for the help of Tanya Porter, our receptionist, on so many levels. She's been integral in making sure that these notices, and it may be her fault, I might just blame her for why we have so many applicants, because she was very good in getting these out repeatedly to the 8 schools that are participating in this. We had over $8,200 requested of us for funds, And of course, we only had 2,000 to disperse. We were able to go through, and for the most part, we had, out of the 35, we funded 27 of them. We made that decision of funding 27. Some of them, even though we said this year, no field trips, some of them teetered on a field trip-ish kind of an attitude. And so, and I have to give a lot of credit to Tanya. She has a lot of great background on, and besides having children in school over the years, it's like most of us have, she has a lot of great connections. And she and I spent hours and hours over the last several days contemplating, going through these, researching, making some connections with some of these teachers. And it was, we funded anything from a $25 one, well, I should say, our lowest ask of us was $41.88 or something like that, and our highest one was $3,000. So we had one that was really asking, I should say, but we didn't award anything over $100 in that. We were able to spread that out well, and it was a great experience. I do have, I will reach out publicly in different ways. I've got 2 requests. If anyone has availability of classics in their home that they would be otherwise donating to DI or garage selling, books, classic books, we would love to gather them, and Tanya will collect those at the city center, at her desk, that we can then disperse to this one particular teacher. We have granted some dollars towards this teacher who's using, has a great program using classics, but he's been using DI as a source to try to get them inexpensively. So if you have anything from Shakespeare, Twain, Bronte, Ray Bradbury, Ray Bradbury, a little together, Orwell, anything that you would consider classic, drop it off here at the city, and we're going to make some please other places to try to buoy that up, that project. And then one more, and then I'm going to look at Lincoln on this one. We've got Lindon Elementary School is looking for some help with pickleball equipment. And I know that I don't know if they really want competition for more pickleballers, but this is elementary school. So maybe we're looking for, we have granted some funds for this, but it's a bigger ask than we have opportunity to fulfill. But if you've got extra rackets, or if people are moving on up in equipment, maybe we could, again, collect that here through Tanya at the front desk, and we can make sure that the Lindon Elementary. So we're trying to find ways to broaden our availability for funds. So it's been a fun experience. And again, Tanya's been wonderful to work with. I appreciate the mayor trusting me with this. And so we'll be funding those. The funding letters will be going out here this week. And that's all
Thank
I
you,
have.
Randy, very much. Okay.
All right, thank you. I will comment on 2 traditions here in Lindon where residents have reached out to me to express their appreciation that the city does that. That is the leaf pickup and also the garbage dumpsters where people are able to go do things. So it was fun to hear that appreciation, and well used. People like it. And I hope we advertise that well.
Today was the last day of the dumpster, was it? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're real close to the end on that. Did attend with the mayor and with Adam our Public Works and Engineering meeting that happens often. I won't.
On the 8th.
Yes, it was on the 8th, but won't go into too much onto that. On the North Union Irrigation Company, attended that meeting. $200, and Juan knows this, he'll put it into his budget. $200 will be the share for this. Brian, I may want to talk to you a little bit afterwards. There's a letter that's going to go out that will be some changes. Let me talk to you a little bit about that, on what involvement you might have before it goes. So, all right, that's it.
Thank you so much. Randy, I'd like you to express my regrets to the senior center. I will be at my son's BYU Idaho graduation on the 15th.
I'll let them
I
know.
would have so loved to be there with the seniors and you. So thank you for all you're doing with working with the senior activities and all that. So really quickly, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Juan for the tour that he gave the youth council and taking everybody kind of after hours to do that leaf pickup. That was a lot of fun. They have a great department down there and do a great job taking care of the city and managing the equipment and all the employees there. Mike and I attended the Urban Land Institute conference, and they look at land use, they look at trends and real estate and growth throughout the state. And one of the things that they've mentioned, some of you are probably have heard the former prison at the point of the mountain in Draper is now going to become a master planned 600-acre innovation, all sorts of, it's going to be a big mixed-use community. That was something that they've unveiled. They've started to unveil, and you're going to hear a little bit more about it. They're going to consider it a 15-minute mini city within itself. They're going to have all the mass transit planned to come through there. Really kind of fascinating. A whole big downtown section there. They're going to have a trail along the river, the transit. They want to have, it's going to have a very high density kind of there in that one little spot, as well as all the other economic things happening there. So anything you want to add, Michael, about that or that conference?
No, they talked a lot about housing as well, and a lot of discussion on smart neighborhood or smart cities and smart developments being close to transit, and just saying how housing is probably it's slowed down quite a bit, and with interest rates and things, and so they spent quite a bit of time talking about housing.
Yeah, they mentioned this, no downtown is built in just 5 years, so this is going to be a little bit longer range plan. And then we met with a developer afterwards from that meeting, and anyway, working towards bringing some attention to what Lindon possibilities could be, hopefully. And then doTERRA had a big grand groundbreaking for the Hale Center Theater last week. So the Cooks have donated the ground there in front of their corporate headquarters for a big new Hale Center, and they're going to call it the Ruth, honoring Ruth Hale. And it was a really great, fantastic event represented by many people throughout the state. So they are looking for continued donations to meet the other half match to build that out. So what is exciting about that is that's going to be a major regional draw, and naturally whatever businesses or restaurants or things that we have in Lindon the tide will rise for all of us in that regard, besides the cultural benefits. So also IHC attended one of their meetings. They are going to be rebranding. You're going to see them rebrand soon. They are also opening a new hospital out in Saratoga Springs. And again, IHC, both them and Mountain Point Medical, do a lot with it out throughout the community, trying to be good community partners. The Fazari bicycles, Adam and Mike, we were there just last Friday. So I don't know if you're familiar, but they're kind of a homegrown company that started here in Lindon, and they have an amazing, beautiful, big manufacturing facility, but also has a great showroom in there. They manufacture custom bikes, both off-road and for the road, and they had a huge event bringing in overland enthusiasts, off-roading, everything outdoor camping. They had, probably 30, 40 tents of different retailers and brands, and they think they might want to turn this into an annual event. So we might have our own Lindon outdoor retailer kind of a show, maybe starting here. So any comments from staff about that?
It was cool. Go next year.
Yeah, definitely.
It was
we
cold. It was very cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Washburns, yes. So little anecdotal thing I thought I'd share, because some of you were on the council years ago when the Washburns, when their dad passed away, and all that land they were trying to sell it, and a developer came along and wanted to build some multifamily apartments there, and the council declined it. And Chris Washburn, who's now running Fazari, he said, actually at the time, we were really upset that didn't happen. And he said, but actually it is the greatest blessing that the council said no, because we have now kept that land in our family, and they have now all these entrepreneurial businesses on that ground that the next generation is now starting and kicking off, and it gives them space to grow and keep the legacy and all the memories that they had growing up, working that farm. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then also Utah Lake Authority is moving forward. Not a whole lot to report here now. They're just kind of organizing, getting together a consulting firm to plan a management plan for the $30 million allocated by the state, and hiring the legal counsel for that. There's a lot, you're going to see a lot more happening with Utah Lake, bringing awareness, helping clean it up, helping make it the jewel and the gem that it should be and was long ago. So good things happening there, hopefully slowly over time. We recently, as a city, applied for a Department of Water grant, along with a pool of some other applicants that's going for anything that can help the watershed there, and we hopefully can see if we win that award with that grant among the other applicants that staff we just put together that we found out through the Lake Authority there. And that would be for a project for some of our stormwater. So, and finally, the Business Summit, they had the summit here recently, and so far, economy's still looking like it's going fairly well. Things are starting to level in some ways, but hopefully things are still going to be, obviously inflation is hurting everyone a lot, and affecting a lot of things and interest rates. So moving forward as a city, I think, I really want to give a big appreciation and shout out to all the staff. They're constantly looking for ways to handle data, make decisions with a data-driven manner, and plan and project and be cautious with what we do and do things very prudently and wisely, thinking far forward into the future. So really appreciate staff. They give 150% every day. So couldn't say enough good things about them.
Thank
All
you.
right.
I want to echo too the sentiments about staff. I love these extracurricular things. The photo contest is just, it's amazing. And the youth council and all the volunteers, all the people, all the extra things that we're doing to make our youth and make our citizens more involved. And I think it's just fantastic. It gives me happiness. It gives me joy. So I appreciate all that too. So off topic a little bit again. I haven't heard much about the horse arena. Do we know? Is that something we don't want to talk about?
That's supposed to go out to bid any day now, and then within a few weeks, we'll have a bid opening and be under construction soon, so.
Okay, well, I just have neighbors that, first of all, are very grateful, and then have just been asking me what the status was, and
yeah.
I just said it's in process. So
It's planned to happen during the winter season, so they can use it again.
Great, thank you.
When the weather warms up.
Also, I want to thank Adam and Juan. I've had numerous inquiries. I mentioned about the traffic calming devices, the speed bumps in our neighborhood where they redid the roads. Still slow marking them, but they at least did come out and put markers, the cones, the thin cones, so you at least know that they're there. It does seem to be taking them quite a long time to do the
striping.
Well, not even the striping, but the concrete around the valves and stuff like that. That's taken a long time. But
The weather?
I was going to say it's probably because of the weather is what I'm guessing, but they can protect that. But anyway, needless to say, I appreciate all that they're doing, and I'm just glad it's not me that is out there having to do that. So thank you again for getting back and following up on that. My request, I appreciate that. We just, last Monday night, we had for the North Point Solid Waste Special Services District, we had our public hearings on our budget, our 2022 amended budget, and our 23 budget moving forward. We also had our public hearing on the rate increases. And by the way, thank you very much for your warm reception for Neil Schwendeman. We appreciate you listening to the presentation, and felt like it went well. We had one member city, at least the representative from that member city, who seemed to be pretty hot and bothered about the rate increase. But at the end of the day, we received overwhelming support from various mayors and council members of cities that we represent on the North Point board, and still, in comparison, our rates are very, very favorable, even with the increase. And so we feel confident that moving forward that we'll be able to provide the same levels of service. We are going out to bid on our master plan, getting prices on, rather than rebuilding, tearing down and building new, we're going to just be doing a remodel, renovation, expansion. That's the plan. And so we'll be going out and actually getting cost to see what that's going to cost us. Fortunately, we have a very healthy fund balance, which hopefully we can use a portion of that. We are gearing up, candidly, we are gearing up both from a revenue standpoint as well as a reserve standpoint, because you need a certain ratio of revenue to debt. Right now, we really have no debt except some capital items, some big dozers and crushers and things like that. But hopefully we won't have to go out when we do our expansion and bond for very much of that. But that will be a revenue bond. It won't be, we won't necessarily go out and ask for an increase again. So again, thank you for that. Chamber of Commerce. I've been gone so darn much. Funerals, weddings, mission homecomings, mission farewells. You know how it goes. But I just interesting. Maybe I just ought to call and talk to them about this. But it seemed like to me there's a lot of short notice things, and then things that we get on the calendar and at the last minute, it's canceled. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it's a little bit hard. I try to schedule so where I can attend those things, but I don't necessarily know the reasons why we get such short notice on those things, but I guess I can call and find out.
Maybe you can bring that up with Eric.
Well, we'll have a board meeting. I'll probably bring it up, but I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, Mike.
I know I wasn't able to, let's say, they canceled the board meeting last week, but the October one, I know they had on the whiteboard at the meeting, they had the list of all the dates of upcoming things, and I think it's more, they're just sending out the emails, like reminders about those, like with short notice. So they're on the main calendar, they're just not getting emails really quick out.
Okay. What you're really saying is I probably ought to attend the next board meeting.
Ask Mercedes to give a summary report of board meetings or something.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. So,
For
okay,
those that
I
miss.
just wonder if anyone else had noticed that. Like I say, I try to attend where there is, but there's just been a lot of cancellations, a lot of short notice things, at least in my mind.
Sometimes the businesses that want a ribbon cutting are a little squishy on their time, or they scooch things
That's
up or
probably what it is.
forward or back, so,
Those weren't on the calendar.
yeah.
Those are sometimes, they, like we had a business last week over in the little strip mall area over there, a new restaurant, and can we do a ribbon cutting in 2 days? And that just doesn't.
So that just happened, yeah. I am very impressed with the support of that the board. We have a great board. We have a lot of avid supporters of our businesses, both in Lindon and Pleasant Grove. So not a complaint so much as an observation. I just was kind of wondering about that. So.
And that would be good if they could send out a list of all the major upcoming
Put it on your calendars.
calendar things early, so.
Yeah, that would help. So I think that's better thing I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Administrators report.
Could I add one more thing?
Yes, quickly.
Yep,
Sure,
I'm so sorry.
sure.
I forgot to mention about our Christmas events that are coming up. We've got
Yes.
Monday, the 28th is our Light the Night at 6:30 at our City Center Park. We'll be pleased to have Valara Arnold, who's a jazz vocalist, who will be performing for us as we light the night that night, and be able to open up the opportunities for Santa's letter mailbox. It'll be in the park. The next Monday, the 5th, we will have council late that time. Is it?
We'll be meeting at 7:30 on the 5th to
Thank you.
accommodate the 6 o'clock.
Yep, they'll have a 6
historic
o'clock.
tree lighting.
December 5th.
December 5th will be 6
Monday.
o'clock at the Community Center for the historic tree lighting ceremony, which is always a wonderful event to attend as well. On the 7th, the Wednesday, is the Santa Parade, which will start at 5:45 and will be at various locations throughout the city. Check the Lindon's Recreation website or Facebook to find the tracker, to find out where Santa will be in the parade. And then lastly, on the 10th, Saturday, is the Santa extravaganza from, I think, 10:30 to 11:30, or 10 to 11:30. And that's a wonderful opportunity for pictures with Santa, and they just do such a wonderful job at the Parks and Recs Department. So that was a little bit beyond what I needed to, but Jake is not here, so maybe just touching on all those
Thank
Christmas
you.
activities by the Park and Rec Department.
Great. I'm so glad you brought those up because there's a couple of them that will happen before our
For our
next
next time.
meeting. Yeah. Okay, now on to administrators'
Only
report.
other thing, Randy covered everything there. That's okay, that I had to just remind you of the employee Christmas party Tuesday, December 20th at 6 at the community center. Alicia Adams from our police department sent out an RSVP request by email last week. And so
Is it the
there was a
6th or-
time mix-up, and then she sent a second follow-up, so look at
Oh,
that
I missed
second
that second
email,
one.
so. That's all I have, Mayor, thanks.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item number 6. This is the approval of the minutes from November 7th, 2022. Any reviews, comments?
I didn't see anything. If there's nothing, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion.
A second.
Okay, motioned by Councilmember Vanchery, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. We have the minutes approved. Item number 7 on the consent agenda. We have a couple items here that are being presented for approval. Adam, would you like to highlight anything in these at all before
Yeah,
we
just
move
really
forward?
quick, Chief, anything you want to say on this? You want me to just dive into the victim advocate? Go for it? Okay, so victim advocate services, this is something that you've already budgeted for. This is basically us contracting with Orem, who has a few professionals that are certified and trained to act in this role and help individuals as needed. We will be contracting with them for $8,000 per year. And then this would be administered through the police department with Chief Brower overseeing this. And then the surplus equipment just has those tires identified that we'll post for sale.
Do you think those tires will sell?
I have no idea, but we're gonna
That's a
try.
big price,
So,
huh?
Yeah, I was just curious.
yeah, it's funny on that publicsurplus.com how many things do sell, so.
But they won't be purchased for the use as a tire, but maybe for something recreational.
All right. Any other questions, council? All right, I'd entertain a motion then for the consent agenda items.
I'll make a motion to approve those consent agenda items as listed.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Powell, seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor of the consent agenda items?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Okay, now we're on to item number 8. This is a review and action on the secondary water meter installation project.
So we've received a number of bids on the installation project for these meters and vetted a couple of our low bidders. We are recommending that the city award this project to Hydrovac Excavation LLC in the amount of $1,131,545. This will install secondary meters, this project. We broke the city into 3 different zones, and so kind of west, lower Lindon, and central Lindon, we will have completed by the end of May, and then looking the upper side, up on the hillside, by the end of September.
Is that zone 3?
Zone 3 is the west side, down below.
This was
One thing I want you to be well aware of, and I know we're gonna get complaints on this, I'm just gearing up for it. So Hydrovac Excavation, let me show a couple photos. This was actually my property. They were the contractors that did work in Payson, where I live. So this top photo is before the work was done. In Payson, they actually did not have 2 boxes. Most locations in Lindon has a city box where there's a connection or a junction, and then there's another second box where the the resident may have a filter or a shut-off valve or a hose bib. So in Payson, they were actually installing a box in addition to the one that was already there. Their methodology, ignore the branch that actually they come in with a hydro, it's a Vector truck, thank you. Big, huge truck that they have pressurized wands for shooting the water into the area. They liquefy everything and suck it out. The benefit to this process is that they're not cutting through utilities. They are not blue staking. They are not going to be held up in some of those methods as far as in these street frontages or in front yards. You might have cable or power or conduit for other utilities. This method allows them to excavate and suck all that material out without cutting anything. And so it was interesting. We called several other cities that they've worked with. Draper had so many problems that they do not allow this to continue with excavation. They will only allow it to continue with hydro excavation in this manner. What will happen is they will open a trench for these boxes where they may need to expand if there's outside the existing box. They will suck out all of the grass and sod. During this wintertime work, there is no sod available. And so they will not be restoring anybody's grass until summer of 2023. That's going to make people upset. And so we will message that as hard as we can. We're looking at door hangers before construction and then door hangers afterward when we anticipate the sod is available. So just throwing that out there now, that was a big concern. Some of the other companies, they said, hey, we'll cut it and piece it all back together, but there's no water to re-water that sod. The expectation is, or if it's frozen, it'll just come out in little chunks. It won't come out easily. So the expectation was that we'd probably have any grass or sod dying if there was companies trying to put it back in. With Hydrovac's process, they just suck it all out anyway. And so that's going to be a concern, that we're going to have people frustrated or not getting the message. And so we will do our best to try to get that out there. But if you will help us deliver that message that we're keeping track of who needs their grass restored, and they will be coming back around in the summer.
What if they have ornamental plants in that area?
Anything within a 3-foot radius, they will try to remove and pull it back. We're going to ask residents to try to do that before the project happens. But we will not be replacing anything within that 3-foot radius of the box. So if it's bark or rock or something that we can pull back, but if there's a flower there or a shrub, we would likely not be replacing that because we have to tear it out, and we're not going to go buy those same plants on every single property. So that being said, we're hopeful that this will be a good project. And it will be something that, again, we'd like your support in the community to help message that these are going to be quick in and out. We hope just a few days where they'll have an open trench or a box like this. And they'll come back with another crew that will hook up the new meters and then install it. And then in the summer, it will look like that. So they'll have 2 boxes if they don't already, and it'll be put back together. So. Questions on this?
Have we had talked about having a public relations firm be a part of this. Are they on board? Did we do that or we not?
So we received 2 bids, one for 60 and one for 80,000. We thought that was very high given the scope of this. And so we are going to try this on our own for a month and we're going to see how it goes. Hydrovac just did a project in American Fork. This is a copy of American Fork's door hanger. They were the primary contact. If people had concerns, their phone number is on there. And so they're calling the contractor directly, and they said they actually preferred that instead of having a third party that they had to go through. Our only concern is just to make sure that we feel the residents have been taken care of. And so if they're not contacting us or some other party, Hydrovac may not inform us about everything, and so that's our only concern with that aspect.
Are these door hangers part of their bid and
It
included?
is, so they are included, the printing and actually distributing as part of their bid.
How far before the work begins in that area do
They typically go out a week ahead of time is what their goal is, so that, and it's a little bit vague. They won't say, we're gonna be here on the 10th. They will say, we'll be in your neighborhood next week. And because of, they may run into problems, they've had a truck breakdown or things like that where it may not be an exact. And so, one thing that's a benefit with Everbridge, they have a weekly coordination meeting that they'll be meeting with Public Works. And so Hydrovac will come in. We purchased all of the connections, the brass fittings and the meters. And so we are only issuing a certain amount for them to cover their next neighborhood basically in that week. And so we will be able to control which area they are in because we have the equipment. We're not gonna give them all 2,400 meters at the same time. So we'll issue the next, whatever it is, 200 meters and all the fittings, and then we'll identify the neighborhoods that they'll be in. We'll send out an Everbridge that will message those areas saying in the next week, anticipate this. We've got the webpage. We'll be working on an updated video. The video that we prepared, I don't know if any of you were able to see that. Yes, no, couple yeses. Let me go to it really quick. So on the city website, we've created a page that gives a little background on the project, why we're doing it, link to a video that shows the actual work being done, and then some frequently asked questions that we think will come up and some that we've been provided by other cities. This video is one that we made during the summer when we thought these would be hand dug and the sod replaced, but with this winter work, it's just not gonna be the same as this. And so,
You're the narrator on this, aren't you?
I am, and so we're gonna work with Hydrovac and do something similar, but showing their truck, their process, and so that people have a more accurate reflection of what will happen. Another item that will come up, I'm sure, with residents, some have, that photo actually just showed it there in the video. Some of the hose bibs are in the first box, which that's considered the city's box, and that's where the meter has to go. And so if they have a hose bib that they've been connecting a hose to and watering with their secondary water, we are removing that from that first box.
They will be required if they want it.
If they want it, then they need to do it themselves and put it on their second box somewhere on the other box. And so, but what will basically happen, I'm gonna skim through this video. So the material around it is gonna be torn out, and then they excavate enough where they can cut out the old pipe. This process is basically the same. This is what the meter looks like. And it will be a radio feed meter. We have a radio endpoint or a cellular endpoint on each one. And they will be able to download the app and utilize that in the future. And we will provide that information later. And so right now the goal is to get them all in, and then our Public Works employees will go out and activate them all once they're installed. So they put in the new meter, and then the box is placed over top of where that meter goes. This was an example there where we had to remove that old hose bib and shut off valve. So the box is put back and then backfilled and covered up. So what it may look like for a lot of residents is basically a finished product that's gonna have dirt around their box, and if it's in the grass, so.
What does this contractor use? Do they bring in different dirt? Or do
I
they
don't know
dry
the
out
answer to
what they
that.
use?
No, they don't use their own material, cause they did mention to us that they'll be disposing of that, in a drying bed at Public Works. They're gonna work with us on that, so they're bringing in new material, is my understanding. So then later our Public Works crews come out and actually will activate the meters. We're not asking the contractors to do that. We have over 2,400 accounts, and a lot of serial numbers and a lot of syncing that. We want that in our own hands. And so, so next summer, there's kind of the finished product. And the only thing that the residents might see different if they already have two different boxes is there will be a new cellular endpoint feed there on the top. Questions on this? No?
Yeah, and one of the things I think we need to really get out to the public is, number one, the metering isn't costing them individually, where normally this could, thanks to the grants that were applied for and the funding that staff went after. And then also, once the meters are in, we are not charging, changing water rates as of yet. We're going to collect data for
We hope
a
2 to
good
3
period of time.
years, if the state will allow us to
Yeah.
go that long, and so that we can get some good data and be able to. I'll be honest. My hope is that our culinary rates will come down, because right now those are subsidizing secondary, and so the cost of the secondary system. So our culinary rates will hopefully come down, and then you'll have a small charge on the secondary. Just as an FYI, with this bid, our original cost estimates, we were thinking this would be around 3.2 million. With this bid and all of our total expenses, right now we're at about 2.3 million, and we'll hope for just a small amount of additional costs, a few things that we're still wrapping up, but that's great. So we are under our original estimates significantly, and so.
But all the grant money that we received is use it or lose it?
It's a percentage based, and so on all of the grants, in fact, this shows it here, so these are the percentage that each of those grants would pay. So our match is 26.2% when all is said and done, and so, but the lower the overall cost is, the lower we're paying, and so, yeah.
Also, to remind those who might have a problem with this, to also contact their legislators, their state legislature, and share their thoughts and concerns with them as well.
Two components of this, which we talked about. This is very important. It helps us in water conservation. It is a wonderful thing. And then two, yes, it is a mandated state law. But I think the idea that this is a good thing always needs to be mentioned probably first, too.
Yes.
And I'd like to commend council and staff as well, because some cities are starting to charge new rates right out the door as soon as these are pretty much installed. And I like that we're going to take a little bit more measured approach so that we can handle, look at the larger property users, the larger properties here within the community, and different water needs and appropriateness based on size. I've talked with, some other communities like Alpine kind of took that approach where based on lot size and whatnot, they kind of, so we're going to have to address how the water rates will be structured fairly without being too onerous on the city to administer. So that's another plus where, like Saratoga, for example, already began charging new tiers and rates with their meters as soon as they were in. So for the community to know that we're trying to listen to them and get feedback, have them start to use these. I love the app. The app is amazing. It's really fun.
Did you mention that you found a leak?
Yes.
On yours that you weren't aware of?
Yes. Yeah, the metering is really great because it senses if water is used, when you're not using your sprinklers, it's going to tell you you're losing 5 gallons a minute. And so then you have an underground or a valve problem or something. Yeah. So I've been contributing to the aquifer, I guess, for some time until we had the app tell us we had an out-of-sight underground leak. So anyway, there's a lot for the public to kind of wrap their head around, and hopefully we can do a good job of educating them and sharing with them the benefits of what's happening.
And they hope to start within 2-3 weeks, and so in our first area. So we'll be pushing this hard on all of the channels that we can. So.
All right.
We're looking for a motion?
Yes, please.
Van's a water guy.
Do we have any concerns with Earth Services?
We did have some concerns. We are their first project of this nature that they have ever done. They did not have anything more than a handful of meters that they've ever put in. And their game plan was mini-X excavating at all of these locations. After meeting with both companies, we felt very hesitant to go with them, just given their lack of experience. And so
Hydrovac
we
has
did not
been,
want to be their guinea pig.
yeah, Hydrovac has been the provider for quite a few cities now. They have a pretty good
Yeah,
track
it was
record.
a substantial cost difference.
Right. I'm just concerned if you think that we'll see anything from them, blowback or response for.
No, I don't believe that's the case. So we feel Hydrovac is the lowest responsible bidder is the way that our contract reads. And we're able to determine that and make an award in that fashion.
And I understand the wording in
Yeah.
contract documents. I move to approve the bid award for the secondary water meter installation project to Hydrovac Excavation LLC in the amount of $1,131,545 as presented.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Broderick for the bid award, seconded by Councilmember Vanchery. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That is unanimous. All right, item number 9, this is a review and action for a major subdivision at Anderson Farms, the next section of the next plat they are looking to develop.
Yes. Yeah, I heard that. That was huge.
I'm John Bowen with Ivory Development.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry, just getting up the most recent submittal. Awesome. Okay, so, like the mayor said, this major subdivision application is for Plat H in the Ivory Homes subdivision, Anderson Farms. It'll be for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Plat H. We got these new phased plans on Thursday, which is the day after the staff report comes out, but it's essentially the same plat, just split down the middle. Here's Phase 1, and then here's Phase 2. And I'll pull up this was the plat in your staff reports. So essentially, they've split it down the middle right here, in between 919, 942, just here. Anyways, this is the 7th phase. This is the 7th phase of Anderson Farms development on the west side of Lindon. Plat H will have a total of 42 lots. Phase 1 will have 25 lots, and Phase 2 will have 17. They're all single family. The lot sizes range from about 6,000 square feet to 11,000 square feet. Or let me fact check myself, actually. Yeah. So the lot sizes range actually from 7,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet, and then the actual average lot size is 8,691 square feet, which is that's a little bit higher than what is listed in the development agreement. The lot does meet all subdivision requirements, and the roads do meet all grading and engineering requirements as well. The street layout does deviate from I'll just show you the plat that isn't phased, so I don't have to switch in between the two. The street layout does deviate a tiny bit from the concept plan, but as that's been allowed in other plats, it's fine here. And then this plat will trigger a few development agreement requirements that were outlined in the 2016 development agreements. That includes the installation of half of 1200 West here, including park strip landscaping, and then putting landscaping along 500 North here. And that includes an 8-foot masonry wall, abutting the back of those single-family home lots to the industrial, and then tree grates for trees, and then a curb and gutter, which I added that here. So with that, are there any questions for me or John?
have a question. There was a time when I wasn't on council and I was back on council. But I remember Mr. Gramfolius talking about when we were dealing with the issues of complaints with the commercial district and potential not being able to get along sometimes. He mentioned that, and this might be in the development agreement and might just be standard practice, that you'll be using triple pane windows along those homes that are along that. Is that not? Is that? That's in the development agreement?
If you'll see that dotted black line, that's, the homes can't be any closer than that dotted black line as well, so that's a setback requirement.
Right, it was extra, but also triple pane, all those, just the facing windows or on the entire unit?
Just the windows that are facing the industrial area.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, any other questions from council? All right, our applicant, John, is there anything that you would like to add or
No, just
enlighten us?
appreciate Lindon City and working with the staff. They're all great, so we appreciate it.
Great, glad to hear that.
What is your capacity with Ivory?
You know, I'm more of a construction manager, filling in a little bit project manager on the entitlement side right now.
Okay. Thank you.
It was great were you at the park?
Yeah,
Okay, we
I
met,
you at the park,
yes. The park is fantastic. So many beautiful little touches there,
And
so.
we're trying very hard to wrap up the pavilion, so we're getting there.
Okay, great. What is your timeline that you think that you'll start the infrastructure and trying to develop this plat?
As far as Plat G, if you've noticed, we're probably running out of lots, and so we would hope to pave this, you know, later part of spring, first part of summer.
All right. Okay, and working with staff, we're following the development agreement. There's nothing out of the ordinary. I'd entertain a motion from anyone if council's ready. Any further discussion? Okay.
I will make the motion. I move to approve the major subdivision for Anderson Farms, Plat H, as presented.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll let you if you'd like.
I will second the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Vanchery. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I hear none opposed. Any opposed? Okay, great. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving along great here. So item number 10, this is a public hearing to amend our land use table.
I'll make
And-
a motion to
Yes.
open our public hearing.
Thank you. Motion to open a public hearing, moved first.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Powell, seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor to open a public hearing.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now in a public hearing. All right, thank you. Mr. Florence.
All right, thanks, Mayor and council members. So the city staff has brought an ordinance amendment before you to prohibit extended stay hotels in the commercial zones of the city. This received a positive and unanimous recommendation last week from the Planning Commission. So that the city has tried to research and extensively study the extended stay model of hotel. And so we've brought some bullet points here that I want to discuss with you. Really what comes down to, preserving our commercial zones. The extended stay hotel model allows for undetermined amounts of time to be able to stay in a extended stay hotel. We want to make sure that up to this point, you've only allowed commercial uses, and we feel that the extended stay model can become a primary residence at times for people who lease these locations. A couple things to go through. Just looking at different articles online, Forbes.com mentioned that they looked at extended stays nationally, and the average length of stay was 1.7 years. There were other articles that said no, that it could be weeks or months. Different opinions, different articles in there, but still, how does that comply with our commercial zoning? requirements. You know, for practical purposes, many of these can become a primary residence. If you look on some of their websites, on different extended stay hotel websites, they cater to this. They mention temporary housing. They mention that these are great locations for off-campus student housing. And so a couple of the things, you know, sometimes people rent these for a long time because of a financial hardship, or they may not be able to pass a background check, or they don't have the first or last month's rent, things like that. And so, you know, that's one of the things, one of the primary reasons why we're looking at this, so they don't become housing. Let's see, you know, there's also times where, you know, nonprofits or church groups will actually pay for people to stay in these for undetermined periods of time to provide housing for people in need. A couple other items on this. These extended stay hotels frequently change ownership. We've seen that with a cycle in some of them where, you know, they'll not have very good management. A new one comes in, cleans it up. The next one then, you know, may revert back to some poor management habits. My personal experience is that many of these franchises don't take any responsibility in helping enforce any of the issues there, because they have the name of the hotel, but they franchise that out, or it's owned by another development firm or investment firm, and so it's been difficult to have any good enforcement at these when there are problems. It's also recently become popular for these hotels later in life, in the life cycle, to become turned into apartments. Quite a bit of that has happened in Salt Lake City recently. If you look at the, you know, this one wasn't necessarily a extended stay, but the Red Lion Hotel on 600 South, that's turning all into apartment units, micro apartments. A couple other things to look at are our current ordinances, our current commercial zones. They only allow right now for youth rehabilitation, assisted living, care facilities, and caretaker residents. Very limited in scope. Like I said before, the city council's been pretty consistent in not encouraging up to this point residential uses in 700 North. Another item to look at, and I provided in your packet, is the State Tax Commission. So a hotel will collect sales tax and transient room taxes. If someone stays in a unit or leases it longer than 30 days, then the city isn't able to collect any transient sales tax or sales tax on that unit. What some hotels do to get around that is they will make someone sign a contract and renew that every 28 days, but they're still staying in that unit, which wouldn't be compliant with our current zoning requirements. A couple other things just for your examination. I provided a bunch of links that I used for this report as part of your staff report. Chief Brower also was able to reach out to Provo City, and they provided us some different calls for service. They didn't provide every hotel, but we just took one example area. This is the Provo Town Center. You got Sam's Club there in Provo, just off the University Avenue exit. So if you look at this Little Suites Provo extended stay, that's very old. It was built in 75, but they have 131 calls for emergency services per year. The Residence Inn was built 5 years ago. They have 33 calls per year. If you look at the two traditional, you know, overnight stay hotels across the street, you've got the Fairfield Inn in Provo and the Hampton Inn. Those are older hotels built in 87 and 95. They have 13 calls for service per year. And so, you know, even though that Residence Inn is only 5 years old, it's getting triple the amount of calls that those hotels that were built in the 80s and 90s are still getting. So So you do see an increase in calls for service for some of these extended stay hotels. So with that, the planning commission gave you a recommendation. I want to go just through the ordinance really quick. Basically, we came up with two definitions. We redid the definition of hotel, excuse me, which is a temporary, we're now defining as a temporary lodging offered to the public for compensation on a nightly basis, in which 30% of all the guest rooms are offered for occupation for more than 30 days. So we're saying that, because you'll see a lot of hotels, for example, Marriott Inn and Suites, so it does have so some of these hotels will still have some extended stay units. So we're saying you could have up to 30%, or it's less than 30% of the units in a traditional overnight hotel could be extended stay. And then 30%, less than 30% of the units will have what we call facilities or appliances for extended stay hotels. And then defining extended stay is just the opposite of that. It's hotels that are being promoted or advertised for occupancy longer than 30 days. It has more than 30% of the units are for extended stay units. More than 30% have the facilities for extended stay purposes. And so in the land use table, we did prohibit extended stays in the commercial zones. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
With these definitions that you have, do you see anything where a facility starts modifying their building to be able to do extended stay and still meet the requirements? Is that a trend that you see at all in any of your research?
I haven't seen that, but that's something, we would hopefully be aware of, because they're gonna have to, it kind of seems like one of the main definitions is installing that cooktop stove in many of the units, and we would need permits for that, for the electrical permits, and so we would know if they start to add additional units.
And if you look at that definition, we also include, in addition to the physical configuration of the rooms, if a hotel is advertising the extended stay nature, which most of these franchises that raise our concerns, you go to their web pages, and that is their big selling point, is the extended stay. So if they're advertising extended stay, they fall within the definition as well. So we think that we've got that pretty well covered.
So there would be a difference between an extended stay definition and that of a definition of a mini suite or a junior suite or something that have a kitchenette involved. And as long as it's not the primary, and then they can document that it's less than that percentage, then they're still in the classification of hotel.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I see that our planning commission chairperson is here. Would love to have any feedback from you, Sharon.
Well, as far as the planning commission was concerned, there was some input by Commissioner, especially Showers, and I agreed with him that there is a need for a certain percentage of units to be extended stay, just because you have people that are flooded out of their home, or you have businessmen that are coming in for just a certain amount of time, or construction people. So we felt like that 30% was very generous.
I agree.
Still allow for those types of needs, in the community without having that be the primary use. So those were just some of the things we felt the developer was, I'm surprised he's not here tonight, but he was at our meeting.
Mm.
A little frustrated.
The south side of 700 North development.
No, this was the real estate agent.
The agent
Real estate
representing.
agent for the north side.
From the north side, okay.
North side,
Could be.
because I guess, without saying too much, he just felt like there were additional constraints putting on what he.
Yeah, he was upset because he's like, I feel like I bring stuff to you guys and you don't approve it. And, but the commission did that later you had the discussion, well, he's only brought a multifamily use and, say, extended stay so far that we've had quite issues with.
This was the south side or the north side?
North side.
North side.
Commissioner Cowles brought up too, that actually if you had a 200-unit, nice facility coming in that would still allow, what, 60 units to be extended?
Yeah, how did the 30% number come about?
So that is really quite a generous amount to fill those needs of people, that are needing to have that for other uses.
So it's kind of all over the board. Some cities say 10%, some say 30. We had just kind of seen a majority showed 30, but that's really up to you guys. If you'd like to change that, the commission did say they were wondering if 30 was too high, but too generous. But that was just some research that we had done that we had seen that number more frequently.
All right, council.
What do you guys think about that number? It does seem like a big number.
Yeah, almost third. It could be a tad lower.
Yeah, that does seem like a big number, but I wonder practically how many lodging properties are we actually going to see come into the, into the city? There is that consideration. If there's a concern about, yes, we need to have some for people who legitimately need an extended stay. I think in my mind, it would be a little bit different if we had, if we were talking 5, 6, 8 different lodging properties. But I think we're not talking, the universe of properties that we're talking about, in my mind, isn't very large. So I'm thinking that, again, to provide that service where there's a legitimate need, which I think we all agree on, I don't know that I'm overwhelmed with 30%.
I have noticed though, Mike, and I'm not opposed to it per se,
No, please.
but I've noticed that these type of hotels or accommodations, I should say, these tend to cluster in areas. They'll tend to be 2 or 3 in a very short span.
Right.
When there's, whether it's tech or a general, I don't know, use for that, they do tend to cluster together, and so I would hate to see that. And it seems like there's already one over by the Holiday, by the Grid in Pleasant Grove, is that correct?
Hyatt House.
Yeah, the Hyatt House, and we've stayed there a couple of times when we've had some construction, but it's, 2 or 3 days, not much, but we had some friends that were there for 2 months, but as they had been the flooded out situation that Jared had talked about. And what a wonderful thing, they didn't have to go too awfully far to deal with that. So grateful that that's there, but I would hate to see 2 even along our corridor there. And so I guess for me, making sure that we have some sort of quantified number that we're comfortable with. One of the things, and all the things that you brought up as far as concerns, I've always thought that those are very valid points. I feel like there's a kind of a little cloak that can go on to mask potential safety net holes, that we don't get to see them because they're masked by these opportunities for people to be there, and maybe they're not realizing, or they're too lazy or too uninformed that there are maybe some other societal safety nets that keep them out of that cycle of what I want to call that payday loan. Do I dare say that? Are there any lobbyists out there? But any payday cycles, that's similar so that in a housing situation, that they're just not getting out of that. How do I fix my credit? How do I get some funds to be able to get a down payment? How do I expunge a record? Whatever it takes to become qualified for that. And we look at our society, we're tending to be okay with not having the roots that we used to have 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And so people, I heard a gasp when you said a year and a half, that Forbes said a year and a half. And not that I think that's a typical thing, but I think it could happen, and I think it is more likely to happen as we go on. So big letters I wrote on my notes, thank you, staff, for making sure that we're discussing this, whatever number we come to. I have confidence that we'll come to a good number, but these are just my concerns, and I'm grateful that staff is looking at this.
Well, what comes to my mind, however, is by eliminating, by definition, an extended stay property, that would basically eliminate the stay bridge ends, the traditional ones that would be. I think if we're talking about a Marriott or a Hyatt House or a Hilton or whatever it might be, I think just the price point itself, the price points that you'll be seeing on something like that would be a great deterrent for the kind of, oh boy, I even hate saying this. You know what I'm suggesting?
Clientele.
Yeah,
Potential.
the clientele, the potential clientele that would be staying there, I think would cater to a higher, a business person, for example. If a high-powered consultant were to come into town and they were doing a project for doTERRA, as an example, and they had a 45-day contract, and it was important that they're here for 45 days. I think that one fact alone, if that's where they decided to stay, just the price point issue itself would be a deterrent or a screening mechanism.
And I would agree with you at the first blush. I just don't know where we'd be 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah. Me.
Remember, most of us are in that same, just a couple years apart from each other, so you're speaking for a lot of us. No, I just think that, where would that property be to the concerns of the staff and the thoughts of this planning commission of what we might be possibly facing?
Yes. There's a range of product offerings in this category, like you mentioned. So I think what we're trying to hedge is, let's make sure we're not getting, like staff prepared, the discount ones that do tend to turn into just simply long-term housing.
Yeah.
And they're not really used as a hotel pretty early on.
Yeah.
So, but if we attract one of these finer brands, there's going to be that natural portion that we're allowing some long-term stay, but let's keep it a hotel. I think for me, the biggest concern was, this is our commercial zone. Number one, we set aside this commercial zone to collect commercial opportunities vis-a-vis, hotel transient, room tax, attracting business people, those people that are going to come and be economic drivers. And number two, when we do some sort of multifamily, or if we're going to look at affordable housing, we need to partner that with because the state now requires us to offer that in conjunction with any incentives of any commercial incentives, we need to be strategic at where we partner that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we know with the rapid transit nodes and stuff down on 7th North, we know by default we'll be entertaining housing options there. But again, I just go back to the how many. I have no crystal ball, but I just think, again, the universe of properties, lodging properties that we're likely to end up having here in Lindon is, in my mind at least, not very big. But I could be wrong. I don't think anyone's going to be doing anything along State Street.
You'd be surprised. They're scouting it out right
now. And I may be wrong. I'm just trying to figure out, if I were a lodging property. Yeah, you just don't see that many along State Street now in Orem and Provo, and I'm not saying there aren't any, but all of them tend to congregate a little bit further closer to the freeway, or maybe closer to more high-tech businesses and so forth. And so that one fact alone limits us to how many potential takers we may have. So I'm
All right.
Just thinking out loud.
We do. This is open for public comment. So go ahead, and could you come forward and
tell us your name.
Give us your name.
What's your favorite pastime?
We know that.
I don't want to be defined by pickleball, but I think I'm going to make it worse. Lincoln Jacobs. I like the information. It sounds like this came up
this became a question and issue because a developer came in and is wanting to build one of these? Is that why this is coming up at this point?
Yes, that's correct. We had a developer, originally, a hotel group was looking at the south side, and then they decided to put some property under contract on the north side.
I loved your data. I love that it's coming up. I love that we're drawing a line in the sand. A couple of weeks ago, I flew to Dallas for a pickleball tournament. I know it's going to make it sound worse for me. But I booked in a Wood Springs Inn and Suite. And I know the one in Lehigh, and I thought, oh, okay, that'll be great. And it was scary. I walked in, and I thought, oh, I'm glad my wife isn't here because she wouldn't have wanted us to stay there, but it was just me, so it was okay. But then the clientele, they made me nervous as I came and went, and I would love to not see that happen to our Lindon area. At the same time, I recognize that there are some needs for people who have remodeling going on, or a fire or a flood, and maybe it would be nice to have something. So is 30%, that seems maybe a little high, but it would be nice to keep that low. Do we get complaints right now from residents that there aren't those kinds of facilities available to us? Randy, you said you went over there to
Pleasant Grove, just off
Pleasant
Skid.
Grove.
Yeah.
How much of a demand do we know the Lindon residents have right now?
I don't know about residents. We did a market study as part of our 700 North Master Plan. That did say we are low and could use some accommodations here, but I think it recommended the traditional overnight stay hotel was that focus.
Well, there's certainly not a dearth of opportunities at the point of the mountain for extended stay opportunities with all the technology and stuff there. Yeah, I'd be interested to know do you happen to know what their standard is, Lehigh, in terms of, is there a percentage, or you just?
I don't.
Not something you looked at. Okay.
Anyway, thank you. Love the idea. I'd love to see it as low as possible.
And I'm not, just for the record, I'm not bucking for 30%. I mean, it could be 25, it could be 20. I'm just trying to.
I was gonna say, I've written down 20 here. I would throw out that we move to 20%.
That would be where I would go. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so if we've got 200 rooms, that would be 40.
That's a lot. That need to stay longer than 30 days, right? With a cooktop kind of a situation.
Right, Sharon?
I think that was our biggest hesitation, was whether it was too generous.
I think what's a good compromise, don't you?
And one of the things too to keep in mind, you always hope that you have a responsible operator. And so there's gonna be probably, in reality, a little bit of, in any given time, it might be something that we wouldn't necessarily always know the exact figure. We would hope there'd be a brand that comes in that's reputable and could manage it.
There are no guarantees, but
Right.
My experience in lending for 30 plus years is if you've got something like a Marriott, an upper end Marriott or a Hyatt or whatever, usually you're talking at least 100 rooms. So if we get 2 of those, that's what, 80 units? I'm okay with that.
Okay.
It's not causing me any grief.
All right. Anything else
No.
you'd like to share with us? Okay, council, we've had a healthy discussion on this. I
I make
entertain
a
a
motion
motion.
to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Broderick to close the public hearing, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, bring it back to you, council. Are we ready to make a motion, or do we need to have further discussion?
I'm comfortable. You make that motion.
I would make a motion that we approve ordinance 2022-19-0 with the change of from 30% to 20% as it's written in the proposal. If we go 20%, then that would be my motion.
All right, we have a motion with that amendment. Do we have a second?
You're okay with that and any adjustment that you would
Doesn't
do
need
that?
any additional verbiage to go along with that.
No, we can just switch out 30 to 20 and
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Vanchery, seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous by our quorum. Thank you very much. All right, item number 11, this is a discussion item about possible code changes to modify the appeal authority process. And we're going to get an update on the pending application for a group home.
So we wanted to have a discussion with you tonight real quick about appeal authorities in our city. I put this table together. I went through all of our city ordinances and listed who the appeal authority is for all the different items, anywhere from business licensing to impact fees to land use applications. And so you can see highlighted, most of the time it's the city administrator or designee, the city council, or the Board of Adjustment. We wanted to first talk to you about the Board of Adjustment, if what your feelings would be about changing that to sorry, my mind just went blank, an appeal authority. So that could be an individual, that could be that hearing officer for that. The Board of Adjustment, I've been here 4 years. We met one time to approve the minutes. We met 2 years ago to approve the minutes from 2 years previous to that. So I think the Board of Adjustment has met, like one time in the last 6 years. And it often becomes difficult to first make sure they know they're still part of the Board of Adjustment, and second, to keep them trained and updated on any new land use issues that they may be addressing. And so we wanted to get your feedback on that, as well as some of your appeal authority responsibilities, to see if, these are some of the items you want to keep. For example, alcohol license appeals. So that would be if the business license official denies an application for an alcohol license, that appeal would come to the city council. And so that we want to just have a discussion about that. One of the things too with some of the land use applications, so the planning or the city council's the appeal authority on minor subdivisions, so that would be subdivisions of 3 lots or less, subdivision plat amendments, site plans, conditional use permits. One thing to remember on that, you're not hearing those again. You're just hearing whether or not city staff or the planning commission made an error in following the city code. And oftentimes, if you wanted to, those could be heard by a different appeal authority, such as a hearing officer. For
Talk
that.
to me about what a hearing officer in practicality is. This is somebody that does this as a living. He's a contract person. He's out of American Fork. Is he in the valley?
Yeah.
She?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
familiar.
we would be looking for people who are qualified for that particular. Most of the times when we're dealing with the land use issues, we'd probably be looking at another attorney who has experience in land use development or has represented other cities. They're familiar with the municipal functions and roles of the appellate process. And that's kind of why we wanted to bring this up, is because when appeals come up to you, a lot of the appellants are saying, hey, will you please just do this because I'm a good guy and I need this, and you're the city council, you can do this. And it kind of puts you in a bad spot, because when you're hearing this appeal, yes, you are the city council, but you're acting in your administrative role, not your legislative role. And you're not at liberty to disregard decisions that have been made appropriately. And,
Help your neighbor out a little bit.
Yeah. And so it puts you guys in a tough position as well. And so that's why we wanted to bring it to you. Now, there may be some of them where you want to maintain that, but the alcohol the appeal of an alcohol license, that's really controlled by the state, and there's not a whole lot of leeway you're gonna have one way or the other, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have you retain that appeal, that hat, in that instance. And so that's what we wanted to talk to you about and just get a feel, what you guys are thinking about. How much do you love this appeal authority that you have, that hat? How dear and near is it to
Never
you?
having exercised this since I've been involved.
Yeah.
And
There's a
your
lot of
opi-
love there.
Yeah, and your opinion on the Board of Adjustment as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
So there's 5 members.
Uh-huh.
They're all still willing to be active if we chose to
Who
continue.
knows?
2
I
years
couldn't
ago,
remember.
2 or 3 years ago, they came to approve minutes, so that was a good sign.
And I
see-
never did,
see-
I never did hear back from one of them. I can't remember which one now, it's been a few years. Well, it's been, yeah, it's 2 or 3 years now.
You sure you're still with us?
I hope so. So,
Yes, and
I've
we-
seen some of them at city functions where it's an employee or appreciation or something like that. The majority of those 4 of the 5, I've seen them
Yeah,
there
Jeff's
typically, but
mhm.
Jeff,
These are the individuals right now.
Jeff Wilson.
So we have
um,
Jeff
Glenn-
Southard,
Glenn-
Steve
Glenn
Smith,
Mitchell.
Jeff Wilson, Greg Slater, and Glenn Mitchell.
Yeah, it's Slater, I don't know, so I don't know.
So that is the question. We have, let's kind of maybe discuss this in 2 parts then. We have the Board of Adjustments individuals, those 5 individuals, very fine individuals from the community that we appreciate their years of service basically being on standby, but if that's correct, they've only been called upon once in the past 6 years. That begs the question of whether this is a necessary body to maintain, whereas if we look at the assignments of the things that they would be the appeal authority for, would we feel comfortable for those rare occasions letting that appeal authority be handled elsewhere? And
And honestly, when we do go to the Board of Adjustment, we do retain an attorney to advise them on what those appellate procedures are. That's what we have done in the past. And so it might just be more efficient and cost-effective to have that in one body instead of having the 2.
Any worries about that not reflecting Lindon's values?
Honestly, no. Because again,
It's-
what they
it's-
can
it's
do
legislative.
is so prescribed and so within, if somebody comes in and asks for, a variance, the Board of Adjustment can only grant this variance if they make specific findings of fact that are set out in statute. And so it's really not a legislative body at all. And so reflecting community values, I don't think that's a huge impact or a big factor.
No discretion.
yeah.
Especially with advice of counsel who's reviewed the statutes and.
it's really if they bring further information that maybe there was something different in the scenario that now there was an error made on the part of the commission or council in their decision.
Right.
And therefore that, apparently we've not had we've had 1 applicant in 6 years feel that they had cause to have it reviewed again by the Board of Adjustments and those.
The last time I was before with the Board of Adjustment, it was an appeal on, they wanted to bring in a elder home just down here, back behind,
Oh,
On
the Circle
Lakeview.
House? Oh, no, the one on Lakeview.
on Lakeview Avenue. Can't remember his name, but he did the little printing shop down here at the bottom of the hill, the little school supply store and Taylor.
Oh, yeah,
Ray Taylor.
Utah Mountain Place.
Yeah, Ray Taylor wanted to put in a elderly home care facility in a residential area, and he was denied, because it didn't meet our code, and he appealed that, and we went up and retained counsel, and they denied him because the denial was appropriate. That's the last one that I remember. That was a long time ago, because I was the planning director.
All right.
Yeah.
So if we understand correctly, staff, could you clarify one more time what you're suggesting for specifically in blue, the Board of Adjustments? If we decided to change that appeal authority, we would,
To a hearing officer.
a hearing officer that is engaged, that is also an attorney?
In most cases, it would be, but, you know, as I'm looking at these, I would think that all of those would be attorney, yeah.
Do we,
And
do
it
we
does,
go under contract with them ahead of time or just on an as-need basis?
We had discussed that, we think we'd like to get somebody in, so that we're not rushing if somebody made an appeal, because typically when somebody has an appeal, you have 30 days to do it, so we'd like to interview some different attorneys, understand their experience, and, you know, extend some type of an agreement that they would act. But again, it's as they come, and we might have to renew that a couple times before we ever use them.
So we don't put them on a retainer.
We don't put them on a retainer, no.
It's just
say,
simply
hey,
as needed, we'll
Right.
pay you whatever your rate is.
and you, Brian, would also be involved in these,
right,
representing
I
the
would
city?
represent the city.
Correct.
And then you know.
They
we
would be
wouldn't need to hire somebody else.
the arbiter
Yeah,
of that.
To
Okay.
represent the arbiter, if they would take that role themselves. And a lot of cities are doing this, moving to these hearing
Mm-hmm.
officers. And it seems to be pretty effective.
So then my question is, of the yellow, you're asking us to which of the yellows do you want us to keep or
Right.
turn over to this
Yes.
particular
Yes.
individual or method? So it could increase, but I don't recall how many appeals have we had brought to city council?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Very few, yeah. I can't even think of one offhand.
I can think of one when I was fighting one across the street, but that's when I was a citizen, but so that's Larry Elliotson was mayor then. That's how long ago I can go back.
The water and utility services one is one that I would like to take out of this arena because you'll feel obligated to. You'll feel pressured, let me phrase it that way. Somebody hasn't paid their utility bill and they want to appeal our decision to shut them off.
We
after
did
they
just
have-
change that.
After they have multiple bills, and so those kinds of things where,
It leans heavy on your conscience of, am I putting somebody out on the street, kind of a feeling,
yeah,
right?
and, yeah, I can see those being things that if somebody really does want to appeal it, they can have somebody else just review the facts and not feel a pressure on you to do that, but.
The other one I would like, have just some discussion on the back page on zoning violations. Just through my experience, I think it's been helpful when the council, again, same situation, if the city gives a notice that I don't know what, one doesn't come to my mind right now, a zoning violation, for too many parked cars on their property.
Parked in your backyard or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's oftentimes, easier for this to go to a hearing officer than it puts you guys in a awkward position sometimes with the neighborhood, with some of these zoning violations.
Yes, I've had an individual.
I think the ones that go to the planning commission first, it makes sense that you would be the appeal authority if somebody feels like they were wronged. To me, that,
Mhm.
so I would probably just leave those.
Keep that
but-
continuity.
All right, so council, let's discuss those in blue, the Board of Adjustment. What are your feelings about staff recommendations in that regard for those items and for that body? Would we have any qualms about making the change that's been recommended there? Any concerns?
I wouldn't have any.
All right, how do you feel
And I
about,
certainly would want a better feel of, what's the term you called them?
Hearing officer.
Hearing officer. Some of the ones that are, who does it and what they're like, we get that comfort.
And who would make that final decision? I mean, I'm sure you would, but is that something that you would then brief us on, or brief our council on, so that is that being comfortable? I don't know. Wait.
That's something, it's a position that, yeah, I was gonna say, that would be, fall under staff, and the city administrator would be the final deciding, but as we're amending this ordinance and drafting this ordinance, we can discuss what you would feel comfortable with in doing that, if you would like.
And maybe
some
that's
type of input and.
just a recommendation as we move forward on this. I mean, maybe not in future years, that might not need to happen, but just a thought.
It's just a, we bring it to the council for ratification or something like that.
Okay.
You have the final say.
Yeah.
On who is retained. And I would imagine you'll reach out to other communities to maybe share individual who provides these type of services.
We have some ideas of who we
Mhm.
would like to reach out to, just some attorneys who have a lot of experience in some municipal practices that we've worked with, and we'll get a list of names together.
So would you budget for that? You know, I mean, a small,
we would
we
have
applied
to look
a rollover budget because it sounds like we wouldn't use it often, but we'd have to have some budget
Yep,
established for
there'd
that.
have to be a budget allocation for that, for sure.
Have you ever done this for any other city?
I do it for Lehigh. I'm Lehigh's hearing officer on their land use appeal issues.
Is that
Number of years
semi-customary that between cities that they kind of do this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're gonna tell
Yeah, a
about,
number of years ago, we had, it was the Reflections Group home that we thought was gonna get appealed, and we contracted with Tina
Tina Peterson from.
Oh,
Pleasant
that's right,
Grove.
that's right.
their
Mhm.
city attorney, and it was an after-hours thing, and so we put a contract in place, we thought it was gonna get appealed, and she was ready to go as an appeal authority at that point, and it never.
It all went through good.
All right.
Does this help with future litigation?
You know, it really does. And again, this is just personal, I guess, but when I was with my old firm, I represented Lehigh's Board of Adjustment. And I would go in and give them advice when they had an issue come up, and great people, but they didn't appreciate my opinion one time. And so they got sued, and the city had to settle, so Lehigh decided to do away with the Board of Adjustment. Because it became more of a political body. We don't have that issue in the slightest here. I want to make that clear. That is not what's motivating this in any way. But after that, they came in and asked me to take that position. And when I came in here, I talked to Adam and make sure it was okay if I continued doing that after hours, of course. And not been sued yet. It's been doing it for about 4 years, you know, so. When you have people that understand and are very familiar with the laws and the procedures, it just makes things go smoother. And so I am an advocate for it.
All right, thank you.
And
Okay,
we would probably need to put an ordinance together.
Right.
Outlining those responsibilities, and so you'll have a
we'll
lot
have
of
an action
input on
item to
that.
follow up.
Right.
So tonight, this is just a discussion item, so,
Would it be,
Oh.
sorry, would it be helpful if we brought back what our recommendations would be on each of these changes, and then
Absolutely.
yes. So thus far, I heard just 3 currently that staff is
On the yellows.
on the yellows, the water service termination, the water or sewer service termination, and the zoning violations were 3 that you wanted council to consider
Possibly the
turning into.
alcohol.
And the alcohol, yes,
The alcohol, the building violations, that's right, there was the code violation.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So 5 of them, you're saying, perhaps.
Zone violations.
okay, we can bring those forward, and
And there may be some additional ones as we go through and look in the details that we will add to that, but.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. And then there's one other item that you were going to update us
I just
on.
wanted to give you a heads up, it says a pending application, I apologize, that should be a possible application.
that was my bad.
It's probable, but it has not, but we were contacted by the attorney and the owner of Maple Mountain who made the application up on 200 South, and I don't know what that's, like 13 or 1400 East, up there, and they are currently, as I mentioned before, currently in litigation over the CCNRs of the Canberra Heights subdivision, and the attorney said that they thought that they were making progress in that litigation and that they should or could be filing a new application here, but he wanted to make it clear that they had not decided whether they were going to or not. I think they probably will, but So as we go forward, if you hear from residents about that,
Just in time for next year's election cycle.
yeah, we can push it out. Just remember that whatever you say is something that in potential litigation could come forward. You know, if it goes through litigation again and you've got a group of homeowners up there that are very motivated. And so it would not surprise me, regardless of what decision the city makes, if somebody is suing somebody. And there may be litigation that would, so just be careful again. We've gone through it, we've talked to you, you guys are great. You know that what you can say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They're looking for statements that show that we've made a predetermined decision. And so again, just recommend that, hey, you know what, we've got a process in place for it. This is not going to come to the city council. I'm not a decision maker in this. Because of the laws, years ago, the city decided that we would make this go through an administrative proceeding and would not come to the city council. So I don't have any say or input in the final decision. And just say any application that comes in, we'll look at it and give it a full and fair review. That's along that type of language. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, we will now go on to item number 12, which is a closed executive session. Thank you, everyone who's been here. And let's go ahead and do a quick recess. We need to also try to get Councilmember Hoyt on the line. Adam, are you going to
I'm gonna
dial
call
him?
him.
Okay.
I'm just gonna